The bath will start after next 2022.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin arrahmanirrahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladina an'amta alaihim ghairil maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. Allahumma
salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. An Fatimah az-Zahra alayha as-salam binti Rasulillahi qala sami'tu فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلعلأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جده يا رسول الله أتعذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب هودي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جده السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتعذن لي أن أدخل معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتعذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لبائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتعذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلموني ما يؤلموهم ويحزنوني ما يحزنوهم. أنا هرب لمن هاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء بنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذيعة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء. فقال عز وجل لهم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتعذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا. فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرؤك السلام ويخصك بالتهية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء بنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذيعة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تعذن لي يا رسول الله. فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما دخل خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وهفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما دخل خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وكذا الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
और दीगर नारे सलावत।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद।
ताजील इमाम ज़माना बुलंदतर सलावत।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद।
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
پنجتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے پنجتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے سر یہاں آ کر جھکانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے پنجتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے یوں جتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے یوں تو جنت کی غذا خود بھی تبرک ہے مگر تو جنت کی غذا خود بھی تو تبرک ہے مگر نظر مولا کی نظر مولا کی الگ ہی بات ہے پنجتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے عشق حیدر جو کہتا رہا بہلول سے عشق ہے حیدر جو کہتا رہا بہلول سے مفت میں جنت لٹانے کی الگ ہی
نعرہ حیدری
ماشاءاللہ ویری گڈ ویری گڈ
آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے بات تکبیر اور رسالت محفل شبیر میں بات تکبیر رسالت محفل شبیر میں حیدری نعرہ لگانے کی الگ ہی نعرے حیدری جتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے پر عشق میں شبیر کی تقدیر ہے ڈرتے ہوئے عشق میں شبیر تقلید ہے ڈرتے ہوئے کشتیاں اپنی جلانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے پنجتن کے آستانے کی الگ ہی بات ہے محمد وآل محمد صلوات
حسنین صاحب بار دیگر نعرے صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
ماشاءاللہ ویری گڈ
اللهم صل على محمد
نہ بھول کر بھی کبھی تم کسی کی بات کرو نہ بھول کر بھی کبھی تم کسی کی بات کرو نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو نہ بھول کر بھی کبھی تم کسی کا نفس کسی کا وسیع کسی کا کفی کسی کا نفس کسی کا وسیع کسی کا کفی یہ سب صفات ہوں جس میں اسی کی بات کرو نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. ہے وقت نزع کا بالی پہ آئے ہیں مولا. ہے وقت نزع کا بالی پہ آئے ہیں مولا. کہاں کی موت بس اب زندگی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. لحد میں میری اندھیرا ہو غیر ممکن ہے. لحد میں میری اندھیرا ہو غیر ممکن ہے. جہاں علی ہو وہاں روشنی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. فرشتوں کیسا سوال و جواب تربت میں. فرشتوں کیسا سوال و جواب تربت میں. اب آ گئے ہو تو بیٹھو علی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. علی کے نقش قدم کا میں ذکر کرتا ہوں. علی کے نقش قدم کا میں ذکر کرتا ہوں. تم اس کے ساتھ ہی دوش نبی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. یہ ذکر ذکر نبی ہے یہی ہے ذکر خدا. یہ ذکر ذکر نبی ہے یہی ہے ذکر خدا. علی کے ہوتے ہوئے کیوں کسی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. ازل سے ساقی کوثر سے ہوں میں وابستہ. ازل سے ساقی کوثر سے ہوں میں وابستہ. نہ میرے آگے کبھی تشنگی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. سمجھ میں آ نہ سکے گا کبھی علی کا مقام. سمجھ میں آ نہ سکے گا کبھی علی کا مقام. نہ اس طرح کبھی دیوانگی کی بات کرو. نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو. بوقت نزع یہ کہوں گا میں مومنوں سے سعید. بوقت نزع یہ کہوں گا میں مومنوں سے سعید. نکل رہا ہے میرا دم علی کی بات کرو کسی کا نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو نہ بھول کر بھی کبھی تم کسی کی بات کرو نبی کا ذکر کرو بس علی کی بات کرو صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد
ماشاءاللہ جزاک اللہ
اشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم قل هو اللہ احد اللہ الصمد لم یلد ولم یولد ولم یکن له کفوا احد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد
منقبت کے کچھ عالمیوں شریک رسالت ہے فاطمہ امام علی کے ساتھ فاطمہ کا جو ساتھ ہے وہ بہت ضروری ہے عالمیوں شریک رسالت ہے فاطمہ رحمت نبی ہے سایہ رحمت ہے فاطمہ عالم میں یوں شریک رسالت ہے فاطمہ شوہر ولی پدر ہے پیغمبر پسر امام شوہر ولی پدر ہے پیغمبر پسر امام کتنی عظیم دین کی طاقت ہے فاطمہ
نعرہ حیدری
یا علی
کتنی عظیم دین کی طاقت ہے فاطمہ مریم کا فاطمہ سے بھلا کیا مقابلہ مریم کا فاطمہ سے بھلا کیا مقابلہ مریم تو عابدہ ہے عبادت ہے فاطمہ مریم ہے عابدہ ہے عبادت ہے فاطمہ عالم میں یوں شریک دونوں کے اشتراک سے سجدہ قبول ہے دونوں کے اشتراک سے سجدہ قبول ہے حیدر اگر نماز ہے نیت ہے فاطمہ حیدر اگر نماز ہے نیت ہے فاطمہ عالم میں یوں شریک رسالت ہے فاطمہ صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
ہمارے دیگر صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغریٰ بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں فاطمہ صغریٰ بابا، کربلا جا کے ہمیں بھول نہ جانا بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں. ہائے کس کس کو گلا، کس کی شکایت لکھوں، ہائے کس کس کو گلا، کس کی شکایت لکھوں. ایک نامہ تو کسی نے بھی نہ لکھا بابا، ایک نامہ تو کسی نے بھی نہ لکھا بابا، یاد آئی نہ تمہیں. کہہ گئے تھے میرے بھائی تمہیں لینے آؤں گا، کہہ گئے تھے میرے بھائی تمہیں لے جاؤں گا، کیا ہوا آئے نہ لینے میرے بھیا بابا، کیا ہوا آئے نہ لینے میرے بھیا بابا، کربلا جا کے. اب تو اصغر بھی میرا گھٹنیاں چلتا ہوگا، اب تو اصغر بھی میرا گھٹنیاں چلتا ہوگا، میرے بھائی کو میرا نام بتانا بابا، میرے بھائی کو میرا نام بتانا بابا، یاد آئی نہ. سو رہے ہو علی اصغر جو اگر جھولے میں، سو رہے ہو علی اصغر جو اگر جھولے میں، ہے یہ حسرت میری جھولے کو جھلانا بابا، ہے یہ حسرت میری جھولے کو جھلانا بابا، کربلا جا کے ہمیں بھول نہ جانا بابا سوا
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
بارے دیگر نعرے صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
جزاک اللہ سب پڑھنے والوں کا. جسٹ کوئک اناؤنسمنٹ پہلے. السلام علیکم. کوئی عالی مدد. اب اپ کمنگ سیٹرڈے کو 6th اینیول شب عزا انشاءاللہ بیکرسفیلڈ میں ہو رہی ہے. آپ تمام مومنین و مومنات سے گزارش ہے اس میں ضرور شرکت کریں. ایکسپیکٹ ہے کہ باہر سے بھی مومنین آتے ہیں. اس کے اندر ماتمداری کا سلسلہ بھی ہوتا ہے. تو ہم لوکل ہیں, ہم ہوسٹ ہیں. ایز اے ہوسٹ پریزنٹ ہوں وہاں پہ تاکہ جو مومنین آ رہے ہیں ہم ان کی خدمت بھی کر سکیں اور ان کا ہوسٹ بھی پراپرلی کر سکیں. ظاہر ہے ٹریول کر کے کافی دور دور سے مومنین آتے ہیں تو بہت اچھا محسوس ہوتا ہے کہ ہمارے لوکل مومنین جب ان کو ویلکم کریں اور ان کو ٹیک کیئر کریں. اس لوگ نئے بھی آئے ہیں اس کمیونٹی میں, شاید انہوں نے نہیں دیکھا ہوگا, لیکن گزارش ہے کہ تمام مومنین و مومنات اس میں ضرور شرکت کریں, پارٹیسپیٹ کریں اور بآواز بلند صلوات پڑھ لیجیے. پچھلی مجلس میں 40 کی جو مجلس ہوئی تھی اس میں مولانا جو آئے تھے ارتضیٰ نقوی صاحب, بہت اچھی بات انہوں نے کی تھی کہ جو محمد والے محمد ہمارا جو امام حسین اسپیشلی کربلا کا جو میسج ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ سب امام حسین نے ہر قسم کا رنگ, نسل, مذہب کی تفریق مٹا کے ایک حسینیت کا پیغام دیا ہے اور سب کو ساتھ لے کے چلنے کا پیغام دیا ہے. اس کے اندر عزاداری کے اندر بھی ہمیں کئی رنگ ڈفرینٹ ملتے ہیں, کئی چیزیں مختلف کلچرز میں ہوتی ہیں, لیکن اصل چیز یہ ہے کہ ہم سب ایک پلیٹ فارم پہ رہیں, سب ایک چیز, سب مل جل کے اس عزا کو کریں اور مل کے اس کے اندر پارٹیسپیٹ کریں. اسی طرح ہمارے ساتھ آج مولانا طیب موسوی صاحب موجود ہیں اور ماشاءاللہ انگلش کے اندر بہت اچھی تقریر کرتے ہیں اور ہمیں پتہ ہے کہ ہمیں جب تک اردو یا پنجابی یا اس طرح کی ہمیں نہ ملے تو ہمیں اس کی کریونگ رہتی ہے, اور ظاہر بچپن سے سنتے ہوئے بڑے ہوئے ہیں. لیکن کیونکہ جیسے میں نے کہا کہ یہ میسج ایسا ہے کہ کسی چیز کا محتاج نہیں ہے, کسی لینگویج, کسی لفظ, کسی وقت کا محتاج نہیں ہے. تو اگر ہم اس کو اس طرح سے سوچیں گے تو یہ بھی ذکر امام حسین ہے, ذکر محمد و آل محمد ہے, جس زبان میں بھی ہو. ہمیں چاہیے کہ ہم اس کو صحیح سے, اور کرتے بھی ہیں, ایسا نہیں ہے کہ نہیں کرتے, لیکن کوشش کریں گے کہ انشاءاللہ اس کے ساتھ ہم شامل رہیں. اسپیشلی بچوں کے لیے بہت امپورٹنٹ ہوتا ہے کہ ان کو بھی ہمیں لے کے چلنا ہے. اور ہمارے بیکرسفیلڈ میں المیدی سینٹر کے اندر یہ ہم نے کوشش کی ہے کہ انشاءاللہ اس کو ایسا رکھیں گے 50-50 رکھیں تاکہ انگلش اردو سب ساتھ مل کے ہم لوگ جو ہے سب کو ایک ساتھ لے کے چل سکیں. جو مشن کربلا کا ہے, جو میسج کربلا کا ہے کہ سب کو ساتھ لے کے چلنا ہے. تو ایک دفعہ میں التماس کروں گا مولانا طیب موسوی سے کہ وہ آئیں اور آج کی اس مجلس سے خطاب فرمائیں. بآواز بلند نعرہ صلوات.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ الذی لا یبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا یوسی نامہ العدون ولا یودی حقه المجتہدون الذی لا یدرکہ بہد الہمم ولا ینالہ غوث الفتن الذی لیس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا اجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر رياح برحمته وغتد بالسفر ما يدعى نعرف ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم. وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we're all aware, we're gathered here today to commemorate the Shahadat of not just one holy personality, but two holy personalities of the Holy Prophet and Imam Hassan alayhi salam. With us Shias, we talk about Amir al-Mu'mineen a lot. Throughout the year, we'll talk about Amir al-Mu'mineen. When it comes to the Holy Prophet, not as much. 2 days out of the year, we'll talk about the Holy Prophet. It is either the day of his wiladat or the day of his shahadat. Or Imam Hassan alayhi salam. We'll either talk about Imam Hassan alayhi salam the day of his wiladat or the day of his shahadat. Now, the thing is, when it comes to the wiladat of the Holy Prophet, he shares that wiladat with another Imam. When it comes to the shahadat of the Holy Prophet, he shares that shahadat with another Imam. Now, it becomes difficult to decide who to speak about in both of these days. Why? Because if we speak about the Holy Prophet, we don't have time to speak about Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. If we speak about the Holy Prophet, we don't have time to speak about Imam Hassan alayhi salam. So, what do a lot of the speakers do? They decide on these days, if they can, they speak about, for example, on the wiladat on Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Why is that? I'll get to that. On the day of the Shahadat, they decide to speak about Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Why is that? On the day of the Shahadat of the Holy Prophet, they speak about Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Why is that? What does the Holy Prophet say about Hassan and Hussein? How much love did the Holy Prophet have about Hassan and Hussein? If he was alive today, would he want us to do the zikr of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, or would he want us to do the zikr of himself? If he was to live after Imam Hassan alayhi salam, if he was to live, would he not want us to talk about Imam Hassan? Yes. This is the reason we speak about Imam. Now, within the Shia community, there's a problem. The problem is when it comes to the zikr of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, everyone will gather. When it comes to the shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, everyone will gather. But when it comes to the shahadat of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, why don't they gather the same way as they do for their brother? Why don't they gather? Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he himself, he says, I wish my Shias believed in me the same way they believe my brother. I wish my Shias believed in me the same way they believed in my brother. Who? Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam. 40 million people are begging to commemorate the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You go 10th of Muharram, all the mosques are completely full. Why? Because they're all commemorating the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But when it comes to the Shahadat of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when it comes to the wiladat of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, we're lucky if the mosques are even half as full. We're very lucky. So today, I want to speak about Imam Hassan alayhi salam, but I want to speak about one aspect of his life which is very important. If we look at the history of Islam, from the time of the Holy Prophet to the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we can say that there were 5 main incidents that occurred that led to Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam Shahadat, that led to Muawiyah alayhi coming into power. Which are those 5 incidents? The first incident happened in the time period of the Holy Prophet himself, was when the Holy Prophet, he told the Muslims to go in the army of Usama, but they didn't. Usama ibn Harith, they didn't. The expedition of Usama. Why? Why is this one of the pillars, or why is this one of the cornerstones for the Shahadat of Imam Hussein Islam? Because this was the first incident where the Muslims as a group, not 1 or 2 individuals, no, but as a group, they decided to disobey the command of the Holy Prophet. They decided to disobey the command of the Holy Prophet as a group. The second incident was when, on the Holy Prophet's deathbed, it's known as what? Black Thursday. when the Holy Prophet, he asked for pen and paper and it was not brought to him. Second incident that is considered to be a foundation for the events of Karbala. The third incident, which is considered to be a foundation for the events of Karbala, is what? Fadak. Fourth incident, which is considered to be a foundation for the events of Karbala, is what I want to speak about tonight or today, which is what? Which is that treaty that Imam Hassan signed with Muawiyah. And it is the breaking of this treaty that leads directly to Yazid coming into power. It is the breaking of this treaty. That's what led Yazid to come into power. But does that mean that all the other cornerstones do not matter? No. Each one of those is a cornerstone. What did they gain from not going into the battle with Usama? What did the Muslims gain? They realized now that the Holy Prophet was leaving this world, they could do what they want. They realized now that they could do what they want. When the Holy Prophet asked for pen and paper and that pen and paper was not brought, what did those Muslims gain from that incident? That now the Holy Prophet has not left the will, they can do as they please. They can do as they please. What did they gain from taking the land of Fadak from Lady Zahra sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The land of Fadak, if you look into history, it says the income that used to come from just that land alone, the income that used to come from just that land alone would be enough for the whole Islamic army. The sadaqah of Lady Zahra was feeding the Islamic army. Just that land alone. What did they gain from taking or stripping that land from Lady Zahra? They gained the wealth that was required for Muawiyah to be put in place. Now this incident, what did they gain? What did the Muslims gain from Muawiyah breaking this treaty of Imam Hassan? What did they gain? They gained their khilafat. But did they gain anything other than that? No. When Muawiyah became Khalifa, how did he treat the Muslims? When Yazid became Khalifa, what did he do to Makkah after the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam? That's what I want to speak about. These incidents, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, the problem we have is within the Shia, there's some people, some Shias that say Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he shouldn't have made that treaty. He shouldn't have signed that treaty with Muawiyah. In the time of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, do you know the people that were saying the same thing? The Shias today, what some of the Shias today say, that Imam Hassan should not have signed that treaty with Imam Hassan. In the time of Imam Hassan, the Khawarij were saying the same thing. Why did Imam Hassan sign that treaty? He should have gone to battle just like the way Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam went to battle. No. We'll get to why Imam Hassan alayhi salam did what he did and why it was also important. If not just as important as what Imam Hussein did, greater. If not just as important, greater. But these conditions, who put down these conditions? Do you all know? If I'm a superpower and I know my enemy is weak, and I go to write up the treaty, who is going to make the conditions for the treaty? The weaker power or the powerful one? The powerful one. If Imam Hassan alayhi salam was weak, then why does Muawiyah give him a plain piece of paper, tells him to put any conditions that he wants? Who wrote down the conditions? It was Imam Hassan alayhi salam who wrote down the conditions. It wasn't Muawiyah. That tells you what? That tells you that the power, true power, belonged to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. But why did Imam Hassan alayhi salam, why was he forced to even sign a treaty? Do you all know? History says that in the camp, the Shias that existed in that time period, there were very few. The people that were surrounded around Imam Hassan alayhi salam, there were 4 groups of people. Four groups. One were the Shias, but they were very few. Just like in the time period of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Shias existed, but there were very few. What do I mean by Shias? By Shias, what I mean is people that believe in the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the Ahlul Bayt the way we believe today. Meaning what? The kalima that we all read today, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah Aliyun Waliyullah. This kalima, at that time, there were very few people that recited this kalima. In the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was surrounded by these types of people, very few. The second group of people that were Imam Hassan alayhi salam was surrounded by were Khawarij. And we all know the Khawarij never liked Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Khawarij never liked Muawiyah. The only reason that they were going to fight against Muawiyah was why? Was because they didn't like him. The Khawarij, they had decided that there are three people that are detrimental to Islam. Three people. One of them, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Another one, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. And the third was who? Muawiyah's Wazir, Umaras. They believed that these three people were detrimental to Islam and they had a plan to kill all three of them. They succeeded in killing Amir al-Mu'mineen. They succeeded in killing Amir al-Mu'mineen, Abdurrahman ibn Muljim. But when it came to Muawiyah, no, they didn't. When it came to Umaras, no, they didn't. And many people think that Amir al-Mu'mineen killed all of the Khawarij in Nahrawan. No, he didn't. He didn't kill all of the Khawarij. Why? Because all the Khawarij did not go to that battle. And we all know from that battle, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the history book says that on Amir al-Mu'mineen's side, only 9 people were martyred on Amir al-Mu'mineen's side. But from the side of the Khawarij, there were only 9 people that were alive. But that does not mean that all of the Khawarij that were in Kufa at that time went to that battle of Nahrawan. No. After Amir al-Mu'mineen Shahadat, there were still Khawarij in Kufa. During Amir al-Mu'mineen's time, Muawiyah himself, he was displacing people from Syria and he was telling them to go to Kufa. And in that time, you had people in Syria, when they heard about the Shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they used to say, what? What does Ali ibn Abi Talib have to do with the masjid? This is the upbringing that Muawiyah and his people had given to Awam al-Nas over there. What does Ali ibn Abi Talib have to do with the masjid? He was shaheed, he was martyred in a masjid. What was he doing in a masjid? What does he have to do with a masjid? The people of Kufa knew Amir al-Mu'mineen. The people of Medina knew Amir al-Mu'mineen. The people of Mecca knew what Amir al-Mu'mineen has to do with the masjid. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was himself born in the masjid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today they're asking, what does Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he was born doing sajda. When he left this world doing sajda. And people doubt and ask, what did Amir al-Mu'mineen have to do with the masjid? 2, Khawarij. The third group of people were those group of people that only sided with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Why? For spoils of war. That was it. Just like with the Holy Prophet, there were people that sided with the Holy Prophet for spoils of war. There were people that sided with Amir al-Mu'mineen for spoils of war. There were people that sided with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Why? Because the battle was going to take place for the spoils of war. The next group of people were those groups of people or those people that only followed what their leader said. At that time, even today, the Arab world is tribal, meaning that they have a leader of the tribe, and once that leader says something, everyone else follows it. That's it. At that time, it was the same thing. At that time, it was even at a higher degree. When the leader of the tribe said something, they follow it. These were the types of people. Out of these 4 groups, there's only one group of people that believed Imam Hassan alayhi salam to be the rightful Khalifa. And those were very few. Those were very few. And if you think that of those, even his family members, no, you'll find out that no. It was his family member when he betrayed Imam Hassan alayhi salam. That's the reason Imam Hassan alayhi salam was forced to sign that treaty. Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, cousin of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Cousin. Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, he had 12,000 soldiers gathered. When Imam Hassan after the Shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan when he goes on the mimbar, the first sermon he gives, he talks about the greatness of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He talks about what his father was. He talks about who his father was. He talks about what his father had done for Islam. And he talks about the greatness of the night that his father had left this world. Afterwards, what happens? He asks people to pay allegiance to him. And the people of Kufa, they paid allegiance to him. But in Sham, when Muawiyah found out that people are paying allegiance to Imam Hassan, he couldn't stand that. So what does he do? As soon as Imam Hassan went to the minbar, what did Muawiyah do? He started sending spies to where Hijaz, to where Basra, to where Kufa. Wherever the Islamic Empire was, Muawiyah, he started sending spies. The two major cities were Kufa and Basra in Iraq. Two things that these spies needed to do. One, they needed to send back information about the hearts of the people in Kufa and Basra and the Islamic world. Are they truly with Imam Hassan al-Islam, or will they leave Imam Hassan the same way they left Amir al-Mu'mineen? Whatever information they could gather, these spies, they needed to relay that information back to Sham. The second thing that they needed to do was they needed to bribe whoever was bribable. If the tribal leaders were bribable, they needed to bribe them. If the people that Imam Hassan al-Islam had put in positions, if they could be bribed, it was their duty to bribe them. And they succeeded. They succeeded. Imam Hassan al-Islam, when Muawiyah gets ready for war, he has 60,000 people. He gathers 60,000 people himself to get ready for war. Do you all know how many Imam Hassan al-Islam was able to gather? The narration states that at the end, Imam Hassan al-Islam was able to gather 40,000 people. 60,000 people, 40,000 people. But of those 40,000, like I said, you had people of these four groups. You had people of these 4 or 5 groups in it. Not all of them were the Shias of Imam Hassan al-Islam. And when Muawiyah had already sent his spies to do what they needed to do, the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back, do you know where that happened? In a place called Muskan. Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, he was sent with an army. 20,000 people. He was sent with 20,000 people. When he got there, Muawiyah, he bribed him with 1,000,000 dirham. Who is Ubaydullah? Like I said, the cousin of Imam Hassan. He was bribed with 1,000,000 dirham, and he took 12,000 of his forces and he changed sides. When you have your own family members, when you have your own cousin leave your side and side with the enemy, what are you to do? What are you left to do? When your own family members will not support you in this way, in this jihad, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are you supposed to do? Take away 12,000 from those 40,000. What do you have? 28,000. 28,000 soldiers. Now, of those 28,000, you still have those 4 groups. When this happened, Imam Hassan al-Islam, he goes back to try to get more people. But as soon as he goes back, the spies of Muawiyah, they start spreading rumors in that remaining army. They start spreading rumors in Kufa. They start spreading rumors in Basra, saying that Imam Hassan, he's gone to sign a treaty with Muawiyah. Don't throw away your lives. Don't fight on the side of Hassan. He's secretly gone to make an agreement with Muawiyah when this wasn't the case. When this wasn't the case. To the point where the Khawarij, they attacked Imam Hassan al-Islam and they injured his leg. They injured his leg. This treaty of Imam Hassan, What were the conditions of this treaty? That's what I want to get to. The first condition that Imam Hassan placed was that Imam Hassan, he says the first thing that Muawiyah needs to do is that he needs to judge, make rules, make laws based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet. First condition. If Muawiyah was a ruler in Sham even before this incident. He was a ruler in Sham before this incident. If Imam Hassan believed that Muawiyah was acting according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, then why does he put this condition down? There'd be no need for this condition. But the fact that he stipulates this condition tells you that Muawiyah was not ruling Sham based on the Quran and the Sunnah. 1. 2. The second condition that he stipulates is that the Khilafat after him would revert back to Imam Hassan. And if Hassan is not alive, it would go to his brother Hussein. It would go to. Was this not the condition, the main condition that caused Karbala to happen? Meaning what? Meaning Khilafat did not revert back to Abu Abdullah Hussein al-Islam. It went to whom? It went to Yazid. Second condition. The third condition was that Muawiyah was to give a general amnesty to anyone that sided with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And he wasn't to touch or bother any of them. He wasn't to touch or bother them. The fourth condition was that Imam Hassan alayhi salam would not call him Amir al-Mu'mineen. Abu Bakr was referred to as Amir al-Mu'mineen by the general public. Umar was referred to as Amir al-Mu'mineen by the general public. Usman was referred to as Amir al-Mu'mineen by the general public. Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali was referred to Amir al-Mu'mineen by the general public. At that time, what had happened? It came into people's mind that whoever has Khilafat, then they are Amir al-Mu'mineen. They are the leaders of the Mu'mineen. It was already rampant in the people's mind. But Imam Hassan alayhi salam stipulating that I will not refer to you as Amir al-Mu'mineen. What does this do to Muawiyah? It makes his rulership illegitimate. Why? Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he's the grandson of whom? Rasulullah. If the grandson of Rasulullah is not going to call you his leader, that's a lesson for the general public to know. If the grandson of Rasulullah is not going to consider you to be a leader, then you can't be my leader either. This phrase, Amir al-Mu'mineen, even the Imams, they say that this phrase, Amir al-Mu'mineen, can only and only be used for Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. That's it. That's it. No other Imam can use this phrase for themselves. They're all Masumeen. When these Masumeen, they say that this phrase cannot be used for anyone other than him, what right does a non-Masum have to use that phrase for themselves? They're not at the same level. The rest of these Masumeen, they're at the same level of Isma as Amir al-Mu'mineen, yet they themselves say that this phrase isn't used for us. Third condition. Fourth condition. Imam, he stipulates that no witnesses can be brought in front of Muawiyah for testifying. No witnesses can be brought in front of Muawiyah for testifying. Why is this important? Do you all know? Because the Khalifa at that time also acts as a judge. The Khalifa also acts as a judge. By Imam Hassan alayhi salam putting a condition that no people can testify in front of Muawiyah, what does that mean? That means that no people can testify in front of this judge. Why? Because this judge is illegitimate. This judge is illegitimate. That's it. leadership taken away from him. Amir means leader, the leader of the Mu'mineen. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he strips away leadership by saying, I will not call him Amir. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he strips away the judicial power that he had in terms of judging people by saying that no one can go in front of him to testify. So what is he left with? He's left with nothing. He's just left with power, no spiritual power. He's left with just worldly power, that's it. And that's exactly what he says at the end, and we'll get to that. The fifth condition, or the sixth condition, was that Muawiyah was to stop cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen from the Manabir. From the Manabir. Did he adhere to that condition? No. 80 years Amir al-Mu'mineen was being cursed. 80 years. The next condition he puts down is that there needs to be a general security for the Ahlul Bayt al-Islam and the Shi'as. Was that adhered to? We'll get to. If that was adhered to, then some of the companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the companions of the Holy Prophet, would not have had their fingers chopped off. If that was adhered to, they would not have had their legs chopped off. If that was adhered to, one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, his sons were martyred. His sons were martyred in Siffin. 2 of his sons were martyred. After Muawiyah gets to power, Muawiyah calls him and he says to him, Ali hasn't been fair with you. And he goes, why? Your 2 sons have died and his 2 sons are still alive. Your 2 sons have died and his 2 sons are still alive. These types of Shias, very few. What does he say? He says, Muawiyah, I haven't been fair with him. I haven't been fair with him. And he goes, how so? He says, I only had 2 sons to sacrifice for him. I only had 2 sons to sacrifice for him. I haven't been fair with him.
Nare Haidari! Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The last condition, there was a land in the Persian Empire, when Persia was taken into the Islamic Empire, there was a land called Dar Abjad. This land, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he stipulated that the tax from this land will come to me, and I have a right to spend that money as I see fit on the Ahlul Bayt and the Shias. These were the conditions. Taxes coming to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Imam Hassan alayhi salam not believing him to be leader. Imam Hassan alayhi salam stripping away judicial power. Imam Hassan alayhi salam stipulating that leadership will come back to me or my brother after him. What is left now? What does Muawiyah do? This is what Imam Hassan alayhi salam needed for the people to see. The problem with Muawiyah for Islam, what was the problem with Muawiyah for Islam? His father, Abu Sufyan, he was outwardly an enemy of Islam. Outwardly, he was an enemy of Islam. Muawiyah was more cunning. Outwardly, he was a friend of Islam. Inwardly, he was the enemy of Islam. And that's the definition of a hypocrite. Inwardly, he was an enemy of Islam. Outwardly, he was a friend. Imam Hassan Islam, he signed this peace treaty with him so the people can know exactly what he knows. So that in what he is inwardly, that can come out. And as soon as this treaty was signed, Imam Hassan Islam, he goes on the minbar and he gives his speech. Muawiyah, when he gets on the minbar, do you know what he does? He puts the treaty underneath his feet. He takes out this ring. He takes out the ring and he says, this treaty is just like this ring. I can do with it as I please. The way I take out this ring and put it back on, I can do the same with the treaty. I can do that with. And none of the Muslims stood up to him. None of them. What Imam Hussein alayhi salam did, and what Imam Hassan alayhi salam did, you have to remember, if the roles were reversed, Imam Hussein alayhi salam would still sign that treaty with Muawiyah, and Imam Hassan alayhi salam would go out to the battlefield in Karbala. If the roles were reversed. But why did Imam Hassan alayhi salam sign that treaty? It was so people could know exactly what Muawiyah was. So people could know what Muawiyah was. In the time after Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred, the first people to rise up against Yazid were from where? Kufa. Mukhtar, where did he gather people from? The first people to rise up against Yazid were from Kufa. The people that came out to fight against Imam Hussein alayhi salam were from where? Kufa. Did Imam Hassan alayhi salam's treaty not do what it needed to do? When Yazid broke that treaty by putting his son as Khalifa, did the people not realize, or did the people not then see the foresight of Imam Hassan alayhi salam? Imam Hassan alayhi salam had already told them that this condition is there. Why? Because I see him. He's turning Khilafat into some hereditary thing. Meaning what? Meaning he's going to pass it on to his son's going to pass it on to him. No. This Khilafat is a ukhda of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he wants to just take that to himself. This Khalifat al-Muslimin in Islam, this doesn't exist. This came into existence. The actual phrase is Khalifatullah. The actual phrase is Khalifatullah. Khalifat al-Muslimin came into existence with Abu Bakr. The Holy Prophet was Khalifatullah. Hazrat Adam was Khalifatullah. The prophets were Khulafa'ullah. Amir al-Mu'mineen was Khalifatullah. Khalifatullah. But what happened? Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he says, the only reason I put this condition down was because I foresee that he's going to turn this Khilafat into something hereditary. He's going to leave it for his son. And what does he do? He breaks that. He breaks that. What Imam Hussein alayhi salam did in Karbala, do you all know that is known as Jihad al-Asghar? What Imam Hussein alayhi salam did, Jihad al-Asghar. What Imam Hassan alayhi salam was able to do is Jihad al-Akbar. What Lady Zainab sallallahu was able to do is Jihad al-Akbar. Think about it. When that Jihad al-Asghar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is so high in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how great do you think that Jihad al-Akbar of Lady Zainab is? How great do you think that Jihad al-Akbar of Imam Hassan is? Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he's the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Arabs, they used to call Amir al-Mu'min Qattal al-Arab. Qattal is a superlative of Qatil. Qatil means what? A killer. Qatil means murderer. If you kill 1, 2, 3 people, they'll call you Qatil. But when you kill so many people that it's not even countable, then you're given that name of Qattal. The Battle of Badr, the Battle of Hunayn, the Battle of Khandak, all these battles, Amir al-Mu'min killed so many Arabs that they gave him that title of Qattal al-Arab. The son of that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's having to sign a treaty with Muawiyah. Abdullah ibn Zubair, he's in the presence of Muawiyah. Imam Hassan's there too. He looks at Imam Hassan, there's a full gathering. In that gathering, he says, looking at Imam Hassan, he goes, Hassan, you're weak. It's because you're weak you handed over Khilafah to Muawiyah. It's because you're weak you handed over Khilafah to Muawiyah. If you were strong, you're the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It was unbecoming of you to do this. He says this. And he starts priding himself through his lineage. That's when Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he starts priding himself through his lineage, the first thing Imam Hassan alayhi salam does is, who are you? My mother is bint Rasool. My grandfather is Rasulullah. Who are you to pride yourself over lineage over me? You're telling me that it was unbecoming of me to sign this treaty? You're telling me that it shows weakness? Because the only reason I was forced to sign this treaty was because in my camp I had people like you. I had people like you. For him to call Imam Hassan alayhi salam weak, he forgets what Imam Hassan alayhi salam did in Jamal. He forgets what Imam Hassan alayhi salam did in Siffin. He forgets what Imam Hassan alayhi salam did in Nahrawan. In Jamal, when he fought against the army of his father, who came out victorious. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'minin. He forgets that. But Imam Hassan, he puts him in his place. These are the people that were surrounded, or these are the people that surrounded Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And this Imam, he was Muslim 1400 years ago. The Muslimiyat of this Imam is different from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We all know that. When Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he was poisoned, he had his whole family around him. His sister, Lady Zainab, she was there. Kulthum, she was there. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, he was there. Abu al-Fadl Abbas, he was there. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he sees that Imam Hassan, he's coughing up blood. Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Lady Zainab, they start to cry. When they start to cry, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he starts to cry himself. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'minin. Sallallahu alayka ya Siddiqatu Fatima. Sallallahu alayka ya Hassan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Brothers and sisters, when Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he starts to cry. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he starts to cry. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he asks Imam Hassan alayhi salam, oh my brother, why are you crying? Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he says, Ya Hussein, I'm not crying over you, I'm crying over what's going to happen to you. I'm crying over what's going to happen to my sister Zainab. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he says to Imam Hussein, he says, oh my brother, there's no day like this. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he says this, Imam Hassan, he says, no, Ya Abu Abdullah, there's no day like your day. There's no day like there is of Ashur. Brothers and sisters, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he was martyred, the narration said that the poison that gave him, that poison was so severe that Imam Hassan, he was coughing up blood, he was coughing up parts of his body from his lungs. And they say that this is the reason that Imam Hassan, he was martyred. When he was martyred, what does the Ahlul Bayt do? They're all gathered around him. They all give him ghusl. They all give him kafan. They all put him in a casket and they're all taking him to be buried. While they're taking him to be buried, yes, arrows were shot at his casket. When the arrows were shot at his casket, Imam Hassan, he had told his brother, if they do not want me to be buried next to my grandmother, Ya Hussein, do not fight them. Just leave and go towards my mother, go towards Baqi. What does Imam Hussein do? When he takes that casket out, arrows were shot at his casket. Abu Fazl Abbas, he unsheaths his sword and he wants to go attack them. But Imam Hussein, he says, oh, brother Abbas, Hassan doesn't want this. Ya Hassan, there were arrows shot at your casket, but come and see Karbala. There are arrows that are being shot at your brother Hussein. Hamid ibn Muslim, he says that he himself, he counted 900 arrows that were on the body of Abu Abdullah Hussein al-Islam. When Hamid ibn Muslim says this, what does Imam Hussein have? Imam Hussein's body, there's no kafan on his body. His body is left there for 3 days. Imam Hussein's body, it was buried the day that he was martyred. Imam Hussein, he's left in Karbala for 3 days. Imam Zain al-Abidin, when he leaves to Karbala to bury his father, Lady Zainab, it's the middle of the night. Lady Zainab, she's gotten up for Salat al-Layl and she doesn't see Imam Zain al-Abidin and she called out, Ya Sajjad, where are you? When Imam Zain al-Abidin doesn't reply, she calls out again, Ya Sajjad, where are you? When he doesn't reply, then she turns towards Najaf and she says, Ya Jaddi, Adrikli, oh grandfather dear, please help me. There was only one Zain al-Abidin left and now he's not here. As soon as she says this, Imam Zain al-Abidin, he comes through the gates and she asks him, oh my son, where have you been? Oh my nephew, where have you been? Imam Zain al-Abidin, he says, oh auntie dear, I went to go bury my father. I went to go bury Abu Abdullah Hussein al-Islam. Lady Zainab, she says, oh my nephew, tell me, how did you bury Hussein? And Imam Zain al-Abidin, he says, oh auntie dear, when I went back to Karbala, there were some women that were crying, and when they saw me come, they started to run away, and when they were running away, I called out, I said to them, oh my sisters, oh my mothers, do not run away, do not run away, I'm this man's son, my name is Ali and this is Hussein. When I told them that this is Hussein, they told me, they told me that yes, wallah, this is Hussein. So I asked them, how do you know that this is Hussein? You know a person by their face. My father does not even have his head on him. How do you know that this is Hussein? They cried, they said, Ya Ali, for 3 nights now we've been constantly hearing the voice of a woman. She constantly says, Ya Hussein, and she's crying. And Imam Zain al-Abidin, he tells this to his auntie, and the auntie asks, oh Zain al-Abidin, how did you bury my brother? Imam Zain al-Abidin, he says, oh auntie dear, it was very difficult. When I wanted to give the body into the grave, I realized that there was no one in the grave to take this body. When I stepped into the grave myself, there was no one to give me this body. So what did I do? I turned towards Najaf and I called out, Ya Jaddi, Adrikni. Oh grandfather dear, please help me. When I said this, oh auntie dear, 2 hands they raised out of the grave. And that's when I gave this body into those 2 hands. Ladies, and if you ask, oh, Rabbi al-Mu'mineen, واللعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. ماتم حسين.
ज़हरा को पैगंबर का फुर्सत गुज़ारो ہوئے سرور کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، ہر ایک محمد کا فرمان بھی روتا ہے، جبریل بھی روتے ہیں، قرآن بھی روتا ہے، آیات کے مصدر کا پرساد و عزادارو، آیات کے مصدر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، اے رسول اللہ قدرت کے خزانے کی پہچان کرائی ہے، جسے احمد مرسل کی ممنون خدائی ہے، توحید کے گوہر کا پرساد و عزادارو، توحید کے گوہر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، آئے فاطمہ زہرا تحریک کی آیت کو پڑھتے تھے جہاں آقا، تحریر کی آیت کو پڑھتے تھے جہاں آقا، امت نے وہ زہرا کا دروازہ جلا ڈالا، چلتے ہوئے دستر کا پرساد و عزادارو، جلتے ہوئے اس در کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کے پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، آئے مولا حسن امت کو نہ چین آیا جو زہر کھلا کر بھی، امت کو نہ چین آیا یوں زہر کھلا کر بھی، تیروں کو چلایا ہے تابوت کے اوپر بھی، تیروں کو چلایا ہے تابوت کے اوپر بھی، ٹکڑے دل شبا کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، زہرا کو پیمبر کا پرساد و عزادارو، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، تیر پر تیر بکا کر یہ دعا دیتے ہیں، تیر پر تیر بکا کر یہ دعا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، اب نہ مانگیں گے کبھی پانی چچا لوٹاؤ، اب نہ مانگیں گے کبھی چلو جاؤ خشک ہونٹوں سے یہ معصوم صدا دیتے ہیں خشک ہونٹوں سے یہ معصوم صدا دیتے ہیں کربلا والے ہمیں درس رضا دیتے ہیں قید وہ قید کے سونے بھی نہ پائے آبے قید وہ قید کے سونے بھی نہ پائے آبے سو بھی جاتے ہیں تو زنجیر ہلا دیتے ہیں سو بھی جاتے ہیں تو زنجیر ہلا دیتے ہیں کربلا والے ہمیں درس رضا دیتے ہیں جاؤ سے جاؤ سے جاؤ سے جاؤ سے جاؤ سے جاؤ سے جاؤ سے
محمد و آل محمد صلوات.